So before I start this video, I've got a couple of updates for y'all. First of all, this was originally just going to be a video on how much I just love Jonathan Isaac, but then this picture right here surfaced and I thought, you know what, why not just make a Magic video? Secondly, I'm going to, and bear with me on this, try and upload once per week. The operative word here being try. I don't want to make any hardcore promises, especially after I said this and then went AWOL for a year. So if you do want to see me make more content and for Noah and Rusty to stop roasting me, it would help me a lot if you leave a like on this video and subscribe so I know you like what I'm making. Also, I'm really responsive to feedback, so if there are any topics that do interest you that you want to see me cover in the future, comment that down below. And now, without further ado, to the video.
That's the value. Oh, wow. Here he is.
Seventh steal, Jonathan Isaac.
The Orlando Magic are in one of the most unique situations in the NBA. And the reason why I say that is that while they've got their pool of young talent while also having a number of good veterans on the squad, they've made some pretty questionable decisions over the past few years. In fact, let's just take a quick trip down memory lane. So in the early 2000s to the early 2010s, the Magic had this guy named Dwight Howard. You may know him now as the guy with the outdated style of play, currently on the Lakers, and the guy that was involved in just one of the most wild scandals NBA Twitter has ever seen, and recently he came out as being anti-vax and anti-mask. Wear your goddamn mask! But back then he was a top 5 player and the best defender in the NBA, playing on one of the best teams in the NBA. They got to the NBA Finals in 2009 with a well-constructed team filled with some of the greatest shooters of all time around the best big man in the league, but unfortunately robbed us of seeing a LeBron versus Kobe final series. Still mad about that one. But after a while, he constantly bullied his coach, got him fired, then got himself traded. And since then, the Magic haven't really been that noteworthy. They lucked into avoiding the first overall pick in the 2013 draft, notice my word choice, and selected Victor Oladipo. Then they got Aaron Gordon in the 2014 draft, the world's greatest posterizer in the 2015 draft, Domantas Sabonis in 2016, Jonathan Isaac in 2017, and Mohamed Bamba in 2018. Also, yes, I'm gonna be referring to him as Mohamed, not Mo. If your name is Mohammed, I'm gonna call you Mohammed. Yeah, you, I'm talking to you. So they had a good young core following the Dwight Howard era, including 2 All-Stars. So what's my concern? Well, firstly, yes, they did draft 2 All-Stars, but they were All-Stars in Indiana. Now you may be asking, how the hell did that happen? Okay, firstly, try not to punch a wall while you're hearing this, because I understand that it's hard to, especially if you're a Magic fan. Basically what happened is, for some ungodly reason, the Magic decided to trade Victor Oladipo, Ersan Ilyasova, who was a good role player at the time and still is a pretty good role player, and the draft rights to Domantas Sabonis in exchange for Serge Ibaka, who just so happened to be on an expiring deal, and they ended up trading him halfway through that same season for Terrence Ross. So they turned Victor Oladipo, Ersan Ilyasova, and Domantas Sabonis into Terrence Ross. Yeah, so if you're wondering why I have at least some concern over this front office, this is what we got to start off with. But even though that was objectively really dumb, they're not in a terrible spot. Ever since they swapped out Frank Vogel for Steve Clifford, they've been good enough to make the playoffs, and they have a genuinely good mix of role players, young guys, and a defensive-minded coach. Now, I was originally going to talk about how re-signing Vuce to a 4-year deal was just a stupid idea because it's been cutting back on Mohamed's playing time and development, more on that later by the way, but I sat down and actually took a look at the Magic's payroll, and it's a front-loaded deal, which basically means every year, Vuce is going to be making $2 million less than the previous year, and it's not just Vuce either. 24-year-old Aaron Gordon also has a front-loaded contract, and Terrence Ross after next year is going to be making less money after each year. The only objectively bad contract that's on this team as of right now is Al-Farouq Aminu's, and the only reason I'm saying that right now is because he's been injured majority of this season. He still has the potential to come back next season and be a great defender like he was in Portland. Now, there are currently 3 major concerns that I have for the Orlando Magic as of right now. Number 1, their offense, to be quite honest, is just not very good. To get an idea of how this roster is, for the past 2 seasons, the Magic have ranked 24th and 27th in points per game respectively, and 22nd and 24th in offensive rating respectively. Nikola Vucevic, Evan Fournier, and Terrence Ross are their 3 leading players in usage rate and points per game. Yeah, that needs to change. I don't think this is a controversial statement by any stretch of the imagination, but you're not going to get any memorable success or even out of the first round with this as your big three. Number 2, the next issue, what is the plan with Mohamed Bamba and Nikola Vucevic? Now, coming out of college, Mohamed was seen as a raw player with the high defensive potential and someone that could excel in the pick and pop since he had already developed a 3-point shot. His first 2 years in the league, he hasn't really seen much playing time, and here's a couple of reasons why. 1. He's only weighed 226 pounds as a center, so he kept getting bullied by other big men in the low post, so he became a liability to play on the court. And number 2, Nikola Vucevic, as a seasoned veteran and an all-star from last season that averaged 20 and 10, has been much better than him offensively. Now, the main worry for Mohamed up through this point was his weight. However, this picture came out recently, so it's clear he's been putting in some real work during quarantine. He's now gone from, and listen to me on this, 226 pounds to 254 pounds. That is close to a 30-pound weight gain. So now there's really no question whether or not he'll be able to handle NBA centers at this point. And since Swole Bamba is a thing now, pardon the cringe there, you have to start giving him starting minutes. There's no longer an excuse to only give 14.5 minutes per game to a 7-foot player with a 7'10" wingspan that's a great defender, rim protector, can shoot threes, and is now jacked. And not to mention they took him with the 6th overall pick. So now you've got 2 options. You've either got to trade Nikola Vucevic or at the very least bench him. However, I just cannot for the life of me think of any trade involving Vuce that is logical for either the Magic or any other team in the NBA. So if any of you can find any sort of trade that makes sense, please leave that down below. I'm really curious as to what you guys have to say. And this final concern that I have with the Orlando Magic finally comes back full circle with why we're all here today. Can Jonathan Isaac save the Orlando Magic? So in case y'all might be watching this part a little bit confused, Jonathan Isaac is really good. To get a better idea of what I'm talking about, remember how earlier in this video I outlined just how not good the Magic are on offense? Well, this season they're ranked 9th in defensive rating and 4th in limiting opponents' points per game. You want to know why they're even ranked in the top 10 defensively when they've got Nikola Vucevic and Evan Fournier playing over 30 minutes a game? It's because of this guy. Now, looking at his box numbers at first, his offensive numbers don't really pop out all that much. But when you look at his defensive numbers, he's averaging 2.5 blocks per game, 1.6 steals per game, and ranks 3rd in defensive box plus minus behind Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Dunn. Speaking of which, Chris Dunn really does deserve his own video at some point, but that's something for another day. He's a 6'11" wing, keep in mind Kevin Durant is only 6'10", with amazing on and off ball defensive ability. He's able to read when to come help on an instant and get a stop. He has incredibly quick reflexes when reading passing lanes. He can keep up with just about anyone in speed and strip them pretty easily, and he knows exactly where he needs to be all the time on the defensive end. Now, the narratives this season from the 2017 draft class was that both Jason Tatum and Bam Adebayo should definitely be deserving of all NBA defense spots, but this guy right here is without question a better defender than both of them. So what I'm about to say might be a hot take, but the only reason I'm saying it is because I'm fully confident in this being true. So you can get out your pens, you can get out your freezing cold takes on Twitter, you can get out whatever. Are you ready? Okay. By the end of next season, Jonathan Isaac is going to be recognized as the 2nd best player in his draft class. Yes, the 2nd best player. And the only reason he isn't being spoken of this right now is because he got injured halfway through the season. And if for any reason my words just don't convince you that he's bound to be an all-time great defender and a future defensive player of the year, probably by next season, here's a few clips of him clamping current MVP and the likely MVP and defensive player of this season, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah, now if you couldn't tell, I really like Jonathan Isaac. The only major issue is that even though he's made some great strides on the offensive end this season, whether it be his ability to stop and pull up from 3 and his ability to split defenders going down the lane, he's not getting a lot of offensive opportunity. This season, his usage rate was less than 20%, so as of right now, they're not really viewing him as the guy that'll run Orlando's offense. I think the reason behind this is because they're trying to build him to take the torch to be the number 1 guy on offense next season. The jump he's made from his 2nd to his 3rd season on offense was insane, and it's really unfortunate we didn't get to see the full extent of that. However, now with all of this time he has off to get himself ready, I can honestly see him having a similar jump that Giannis had from his 3rd to 4th season. So here's a checklist that I have for Isaac of what I think he needs to do this summer. Number 1. Improve on his playmaking and low post facilitating abilities. There's absolutely no reason, I think, for the Magic to put him in that main ball handler position if he doesn't have at least some basic playmaking ability. Number 2, continue improving on his shooting and ability to create off the dribble. Jonathan Isaac is taller than Kevin Durant, plays the same position he does, so he should have some similar advantages. Number 3, become worthy of not just making first team all defense, but winning defensive player of the year and most improved player of the year. Now that might be a bit of a tall order, but if he wants to lead the Magic to the promised land, it's gonna take all of this and then some. And I wouldn't be saying any of this, keep in mind, if I didn't think it was genuinely possible. Now here's what I want the Orlando Magic to do, because despite even if Jonathan Isaac does every single thing I've just listed, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because if a bad franchise just continues to make stupid moves or doesn't continue to improve, that's not gonna help. Number 1, keep building around Jonathan Isaac and Mohamed Bamba by adding good veterans and exploring trades for all-star level talent. Now these two should be your untouchables. Everyone else is completely fair game. As for all-star level talent, I don't really see any sort of free agent wanting to come to Orlando right now, so I think the only way they can acquire some all-star level talent is through trades. Number 3, look to improve their player development staff. And an extension of that, help Markelle Fultz be as good of a scorer as he was in Washington, because that is a pivotal point of this team. Number 4, and this is just preference, but go back to your 90s branded jerseys. I've never liked these designs. They're so bad. They're terrible. This, however, this is much better. Make this your main. Number 5, keep Jonathan Isaac happy. We've had so many instances of all-star level talent in the past 2 seasons being unhappy with the position they're in with their franchises and demanding a trade. You do not want that to happen to this level of player. So keep this man happy. And that includes making sure you get his extension and get Markelle Fultz's extension done this summer. Do not wait until next summer to get those done. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot harder. Now, I'm going to reiterate myself. I know this sounds like a tall order for Jonathan Isaac, for Mohamed Bamba, and for the Orlando Magic franchise, but I honestly wouldn't be saying any of this if I didn't think it was possible. And once they do all of these things, and Isaac takes the next step in his game and becomes an all-time defender, defensive player of the year award winner, and all those things, I am 100% sure that not only will Jonathan Isaac be the best player of all time to wear number 1 for the Orlando Magic, but he will indeed save the Orlando Magic. Or unless, they pull another Serge Ibaka situation. That shouldn't even be a possibility anymore, yet I'm still so worried that it's gonna happen.